Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Pirate Radio, episode number 11, whatever we're calling this at this point. It's come to my attention that a lot of you are black pilled on the United States, or maybe the West in general. It's kind of understandable, quite understandable sometimes when you just live your life. I don't mean this negatively or as an insult. You live your life with on the Twitter or what have you. It's just I don't know. Sometimes it's a little hard to keep things track. But perhaps I can shed a little different light on your current plight. Those of you who are eternally white pilled, it's always a good way to be. It's an interesting concept when you talk about the red pills, the proverbial red pill. I guess it all came from the Matrix, which is kind of weird. The Matrix world. I mean, it kind of makes sense that we would take something from that movie and move it across and keep it and all of those things. In my preparation for this, which is not very extensive, and a lot of times that shows, I started wondering, I guess to go back to the Matrix, if you're not familiar, Morpheus gives Neo, who is going to be the savior of the human race against the, I don't even, I guess it's machines that have enslaved the human race into a simulation, if you will, and are using humans to live. But basically, Morpheus, who recruits Neo standing for the One, gives him an option. You can take the blue pill, wake up tomorrow, nothing's ever happened, everything's just peachy, and you didn't see the things that we showed you already, or you can take the red pill and life changes forever and you will never see the world the same. So, when you take something like the red pill in that concept, I guess, um, those of you who have had that red pill moment, try to think back to what that red pill moment was. And it's usually a lot smaller than maybe even you realize that. I know a lot of folks my age, um, 40, am I 41? Yeah, something like 40. Born in 1983, you do the fucking math. A lot of people my age will point to like the Iraq War II as being kind of a red pill moment, which is fine, and I can understand that. But it took a while to really understand Iraq War II, what had happened. And I don't mean from like boots on the ground in a combat scenario. That all was kind of pumped into our televisions by the second almost. But to really understand that story in 2004, 5, 6, 7, the internet is around, but it's not really what we're used to now, and we don't have the internet in our pockets. Smartphones. I mean, the internet really took off with the advent of the smartphones and things of that nature. And it really, it had already taken off a little bit, but it really become kind of the big deal that it is now, um, which is ever expanding. The the Patriot Act, WMDs, things of that nature. I don't know that people again fully understood what was happening. If you were coherent, alive and coherent at the time around the WMDs, the Patriot Act, it was really hard to understand what was going on. Is there the reason I bring up the internet being such a powerful tool in that is that we didn't. It's really hard to find a differing point of view, one that you could look up sort of the credibility of it. Um, I still remember seeing the InfoWars stickers in the late 90s and early 2000s and knew that the guy who ran InfoWars was pretty far out there. I didn't really follow much of it. You just kind of hear things here and there. Um, but I do remember the people that had the InfoWars stickers were absolute nutters and never engage them in a conversation because you're never like they're going to pin you in a corner and about, did you know this, did you know that, well, and things of that nature. The alternative media didn't really exist, and if it did, it was hard to find, and then it was even harder to know. And so much of the what was the alternative media at the time on the internet was given to you in a way that just mirrored what you were hearing in the corporate media, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, those types. It was just online, and really even more so when it came to so much of it was just print media on the internet. So it was given in a way as like they were putting in a. It was almost like an audition to get a gig at the New York Times, the Washington Post, or any number of publications that legacy publications that we've heard of that are all trash now. They were trash then, by the way. We just didn't know. And again, that goes into the whole thing of it, is that it was so hard to know. Iraq War. I remember when the talks of the Iraq War were coming up and they were trying to make the case, I vividly remember thinking something just feels off about this. Saddam Hussein, yeah, he's a bad guy, and it would probably be better for his people if he weren't in power. Um, but what does that have to do with the war on terror? What does that have to do with me or the United States proper? Because we had him boxed in with the no-fly zone. Saddam Hussein had nothing. He was a shell of his former country. He was just a dictator in name only, really. He had no sizable force. He had nothing he could do. He was so rich. His people were suffering not only because he was a bastard dictator, but we had food blockades and not reparations on him. But we had all kinds of stipulations, things he could and couldn't do. And there's video of Madeleine Albright talking when asked about their, 500,000 children could starve, or people and children, women and children. She was just like, well, that's just the price you pay when you're punishing a dictator. So it's really hard to it was really hard to flesh out what was going on with Iraq. It really just, I mean, if you knew a certain person or publication and you knew just almost by happenstance where to look, so many of the people now who are so good on Iraq War II, Syria, mainly Syria. Syria was the one that really launched a lot of these voices that you can search out now. Scott Hortons of the world, Ron Paul, opened a lot of people's eyes. There's Dave DeCamp. There's tons of people I'm missing. I shouldn't even really mention names because I'm leaving out so many good ones. But those are the guys, they really cut their teeth with Syria and then were able to show you how Syria was just a domino of the Middle East. So, this all long-winded explanation to talk about red pilling. Your red pill moment probably wasn't Iraq War II. If it was, it's probably because you came of age later, and so that red pill moment. But if you're my age, 40 years of age, maybe older, maybe slightly younger, your red pill moment was probably something smaller. And even those of you who say your red pill moment is Iraq War II, it was probably a much smaller thing. And here's what I mean. My red pill moment that I was able to think of, and it's a very insignificant, very minor moment, and I don't even remember when this happened. I can't remember if it was late 90s, early 2000s. I just remember I had always heard about this thing called reefer madness. I didn't realize it was like a government sponsored, maybe completely done government documentary. I thought it was like some sort of saying that had come from the 60s or the 70s, or I didn't know. Then I find out that it was a documentary about marijuana. And that documentary basically that propaganda piece, all it did was tell people, lie to people, I should say. Um, I gotta fuck with this here. This is fucking with me greatly. Yeah, fucking piece of shit. Anyway, probably not a good time to be changing shit. That reefer madness really screwed with me because I wasn't into marijuana. Don't give a shit. But I knew people who were way into marijuana. Some dabbled, some were way, some were potheads, some were way into it. But I was around them all the time and they were my friends. So I got to see their behavior before, after. We're talking about coming of age, 14, 15, 16, 17 years, high school years. And we were always told, of course, that marijuana was evil. It's a gateway drug. It was going to do all of these things. Don't ever, take marijuana, smoke marijuana, whatever. I remember these in grade school. They would have you sign these like promise pledges that you were never going to do drugs or drink alcohol. And I remember, well, fuck, this might be my red pill moment actually in grade school. I remember looking at that page. I don't remember if I signed it. I know I hesitated with it, but I remember looking at it going like, well, I'm kind of with you on the drugs one, but like my parents drink alcohol and they're not fuck ups or bad people or anything. I had a great childhood. So it's like, what the hell is this? And really, it's just government doing what government does um, at the end of the day. But when you're, I don't know, 10, you don't really put together those pieces. You don't have the life experience to put together those pieces. But going back to what I'm going to call my red pill moment was seeing the reefer madness. I never saw the movie, but I saw scenes of it. And what the government was saying about marijuana was completely and totally untrue. That it would put you in the state, that women would become more promiscuous, and that guys would do things they never thought that they would do, and jump off buildings and do all these crazy things. And it's like if you smoked one joint, you're now like you were going to be a fuck up forever. And it's like, well, my buddies are like, we're playing football, we're doing all the things like. They smoke a little weed here and there, and even the hardcore potheads still showed up to school. It's like, well, so this is a lie. This is a blatant fucking lie. Propaganda just shoved into the American zeitgeist and foisted upon the American people with their tax dollars. And it's a lie. It's a complete fabrication. And I just remember thinking about that, like, my God, if they're going to lie about something like this little thing, like marijuana, it wasn't even cocaine or heroin or like any real drug. We're talking about marijuana. You spent money on this propaganda piece, and it's just about marijuana. And it's a lie. There's not one truth that they told about it. It's just complete and utter fabrications. No study to back it up, no data whatsoever, just complete lies. What else would they lie about? I mean, literally, what else would you lie about? Well, now we kind of know the things that they would lie about. And when you understand some of the things your government is lying to you about, it's easy to get blackpilled on your own government. And I get it. I totally get it. If I'm going to dive into the comments here, just because I saw this one. So I'm not picking on you, Merc. But this is this is part of the red pill moments of a lot of people's. Once you have the red pill, you can't. Once you start seeing the things, you can't stop seeing the things. So once you go, okay, if the government will lie to you about this minuscule thing, they'll definitely lie to you about a major thing, which has massive implications. So, Mercs, this is the, Saddam Hussein had a legit beef. If you're listening, this is one of the comments. Saddam Hussein had a legit beef. Kuwait was using horizontal drilling to tap into Iraq's oil wells. Okay, so that is the mainstream corporate narrative that they were given by the H.W. Bush administration at the time. That is patently false. That's not why Saddam went into Kuwait. Saddam went into Kuwait because he didn't want to pay his war debts against Iran. And Kuwait wanted their money. Saudi Arabia wanted their money. If you're old enough to remember or just want to do the homework and go back and look, those three countries, especially Iraq and Kuwait, were sharing the profits of those things. And we got a dog barking. We're sharing the profits of those things in a war against Iran, in which we were giving Saddam weapons. We were also giving Iran weapons through Israel, but I digress. But this has been the mainstream narrative that this is why Saddam did this. Again, once you again, I'm not picking on Merck. There's probably 95% of Americans who know what the first Iraq War is believe that. It's patently false. It's not true, but it's what we were told. And in 1989-90, there was no way to find out if that was accurate other than booking a flight and going to fucking Kuwait, learning how to speak, I don't know, Farsi or Kuwaiti or whatever the fuck they speak over there, and like boots on the ground figuring out exactly what was happening. There was no way to figure that out. Thank God for the internet and so many people who've done that homework. But back to the pilling, once you start seeing those things and realizing that you've been lied to so many times, and that even the mainstream narrative of these different things wasn't correct, it's very easy to get black pilled about things. Now, the black pill basically means that everything's doomed, all hope has failed, everything is lost. Why are we even here? Like, end it now, send the comet now. Like, I'll just get the lawn chair, sit out front, watch it hit. Not a good way to go through life, guys. I understand why you can get blackpilled, especially now when apparently the Department of Justice is going to ban trannies from having guns because ew or something. And again, it's another subject that will split a fucking room when under the guise of mental illness, which no one can define still, we're going to take human beings, Americans, and strip them of their rights to protection, their rights to arms, because they're icky or they don't agree with your, view of life. I get kind of the knee-jerk reaction if you're dumb, but I don't get the knee-jerk reaction if you have a fucking brain. And a lot of you out there have a brain, but you get caught up in the fervor, and I get it. I get it. But you can't go all black pill because somebody shot up a school. You can't do that. This is one person. Did they have some sort of mental illness? Probably. I'm still yet to find the provision in the Constitution that says, asterisk, that says, unless they have mental illness. Still haven't found it. Still haven't found the age part to the Second Amendment. There's a lot of things on there I haven't found. And it is amazing that with a Republican regime, administration, They're actively looking to strip Americans of their rights. Based on what? And I know I talked about this last week about the mental illness, quote unquote, whatever that is, comparing it to addiction, which again, no one can really give you a valid definition of addiction. No one can give you a valid definition of mental illness. You just kind of know it when you see it. Well, that's not a legal definition, and that's certainly not a definition that I am going to get behind to strip people of their rights. Just like I don't understand, first of all, I don't understand why you have to fill out a form to buy a firearm. And I certainly don't understand why there are two questions on there that talk about addiction, alcohol, and drugs. You can just lie, which apparently Hunter Biden did, or, maybe there was a break in his crack addiction or what have you. There's no way to verify these things. So it's the same thing, as I pointed out last week, with the trans people who are going to be stripped of their right to bear arms by the government, mind you. How do you prove this? What is mental illness? If I remember, I fill them out constantly, but I don't ever remember the exact questions. But there's something like, I'm pretty sure on the 4473, there's a mental illness thing, or mentally adjudicated, or whatever, blah, 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 blah. I don't even know. It's such a joke. It's just a harassment thing, unconstitutional harassment. And you want to add another unconstitutional. So the only way to do this is through red flag laws. That's the only way. And the second you let those things come in, it's over. They will ever expand. Ever expand. But we're not blackpilling tonight. We are trying to white pill tonight. And it's like, well, how can you have any sort of white pill when you're talking about stripping people of their rights based on what is going to be in effect, open to interpretation, red flag laws? Well, boys and girls, there's a silver lining to every issue. Sometimes it's pretty obvious, right on the surface, and sometimes you got to look really, really hard. But there is a silver lining, potentially, to what the DOJ is trying to do with trans people and gun ownership. And this tweet is brought to you by a guy named Wilfred Riley, which if you're not following him, you should be. If you've not heard the man speak in an interview, you need to correct that now. But this is the tweet he put out. It was in response to a tweet from Breaking 911 about Trump DOJ looking at ways to ban transgender Americans from owning guns, per CNN. And Wilfred Riley tweeted back, quote tweeted it and said, "Left wing about to ride for gun rights like never before." Well, hey, if we can get the left on board for more gun rights, I mean, are you truly 2A if you don't want the expansion of gun rights? Are you really, truly there? You're not really, truly that. Most of you really aren't truly there who say you're all for gun rights or I'm pro 2A, but most of you aren't. Because the second someone goes, what about violent felons? You go, oh, not those guys. Sorry. But you're not really for it. You don't view it as a right. You view it as a privilege when you do that. You're all hypocrites. The second, when it doesn't affect you, you're fine with it. And you can't look down the road at how it will affect you. You're like, well, I don't break the law. What do I care? Okay, it's just one more. It's fine. It's just one. Hell, I'm not a felon. What do I care? Felons shouldn't have guns. They don't have rights, right? Should they have Fourth Amendment protections against illegal search and seizure? Or being safe in their persons? Should they have due process of law? You could very easily make the case that someone who was convicted of anything and did any sort of jail time, whether it's misdemeanor or a felony, that they have forfeited forever their Fourth Amendment protections of illegal search and seizure. They're guilty. They hit it before. We should be able to search them at any time. They're a felon, for God's sakes. You could definitely make that case, but no one's making that case. No one at all. Oh, but they can't vote either. They have to go through all these hoops to get their voting privileges back. Notice I said privilege. Voting is a privilege. Voting's not a right. If you think voting's a right, you're wrong. Just that simple. That simple. It's not a right. It's a privilege. Period. Maybe I'll do an episode on voting. I did write about it once. How voting is a privilege, not a right. But let's get back to the ever multicolor pilling of America, or Americans, I should say. You know, when you dive back into, you know, the other things that are currently are happening is there's a federal presence, federal troops or officers, some form or fashion going to happen in Chicago, and the failed leaders of Chicago are really upset about it. I get it. They're going to prove that you were completely failed leaders of Chicago. It is crazy to have leaders, especially of like Chicago, have the mayor, that utter tool, who are like, we do not need more police here. This crime is acceptable. That's basically what he's saying. Why would you have a problem with more help trying to clean up crime in crime-ridden areas? Why is that a problem? It is funny. We're on, what, 2 consecutive black mayors in Chicago, and the crime rate is still just awful. I thought we need more representation of people that look like us, and then that way crime will stop or something. Again, it's almost like criminals don't give a shit about crime or whatever thing you put on writing. They're just like, yeah, whatever, doing whatever. When we talk about the pilling of America, you got to ask yourself, are you where are you at personally? Are you white pilled for the future of America? Are you black pilled? A lot of times when you're red pilled, it's very easy to be black pilled, because you just see the negativity and everything and the negatives and the you don't see the silver lining. Because you go, God damn, this government lies to us constantly. Which is true. They do lie quite a bit. But that same government did conquer the Soviet Union and communism. It did. This same country, full of these same people, we do have an economy that is very robust, very versatile, and can turn on a dime. Is it stacked against you? Not necessarily. Is it stacked for you? Probably not. Can you operate within it and still make a decent living or a great, fantastic living for you, yours, your family? Absolutely. It still does exist. I've met plenty of rich people that are dumb. I mean, you could run a scam and just get out early. You know, don't be like Madoff and just ride it into the fucking cliff like it was some plane. Just get out early. You have tons of money. You know, the thing I wonder about like Bernie Madoff and guys like him who go down for that stuff is like, well, they must have pissed off the wrong person or something, because so many of those same guys just like him, you've never heard their name, and they were Ponzi schemes and they took tons of money off people. Tons of money. You don't know their name. They never went to prison. A lot of them work for Chase Bank. How is it any different if you're part of the system, like a Chase Bank, Bank of America, what have you, and you basically cause a financial crisis and no one goes to jail? Oh, fuck, the government wrote you a check. Oh, we can't have these banks fail. Why not? Oh, wait, because Chase is tied completely into the Fed. The Fed basically just gives Chase money. Weird. Notice when a small bank gets into trouble, who the people are that show up. It's supposed to be the Fed shows up, but it's always Chase or Bank of America or some collaboration of those two. It's kind of weird, isn't it? Start to notice things. Again, once you're red-pilled, it's hard not to notice things. But think about yourself. If you have a family, think about you and your family. If it's just you, think about you. Think about this personally. And it can be the West in general. It doesn't have to be just the United States, America. Are you a white pill or black pill person? And whichever that is, why? Let's say you're a black pilled person. You're like, man, this is such a deep hole. How do we ever get out of this? The people really don't have much of a voice, even though you're able to elect Donald Trump for a second term with all the things they tried to do to him. I can understand your feeling. But how are things going to get better when you're just focusing on the negative and you're black pilled? It's very easy to be black pilled. That's like the default setting, really. That's like, you get into a car accident, you're fine, you're a little busted up, your car's totaled, and you're like, God damn, my car's totaled. Well, you could go, hey, now I get to get a new car. It's kind of a silver lining. Maybe you really like that car. Well, it didn't have 0 miles. So there's any number of things that you can be white-pilled about. It's just a mentality. One of the things to be white-pilled about with this country is taking all of the things I just talked about, whether it's the Iraq War, whether it's Afghanistan, whether it's Syria, whether it's any of those numbers of things, books like this exist, which is basically a manual on all of the bad shit that led up to the current war in Ukraine. But we know. That's kind of a white pill that we actually know. We have outside the mainstream people writing books, hosting podcasts, doing interviews that have done the homework, have talked to all the people, have compiled, pages upon pages of how we got into certain situations, the shitty things we did, the double crossing we did, the paying of Al-Qaeda over here while fighting Al-Qaeda over here, doing all of those things. But we know 20 years ago, you wouldn't have known. And it would have been so easy for the same people pulling the bullshit to cover up and never give these people any sort of platform or voice or anything. You couldn't just set up in your back room of your office in Nowheresville, Oklahoma, with a microphone and an internet connection and start talking to like 12 people every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Central. That wasn't a thing. That wasn't even close to being a thing. I guess you could have like taken your recorder, put in some magnetic tape called a cassette, or even done the video with VHS if you had a camera and recorded it and then like made copies and like handed them out. But Jesus Christ. I mean, hats off to Alex Jones for doing just that. But my God, what would that have been like? Okay, it's an option. It's just not a viable option. So you can hand them out to like 30 nutters at a gun show. Are they going to listen to them? Probably not. Are they going to chuck them into the trash can? Probably. But even the ones who listen to them, how are they ever going to talk to you again? You got to like wait to the next gun show or something, and they got to find you, and you got to be there and not sick. And it just didn't exist, but now it exists. All of this exists. We should not know that Iraq was a lie. The powers that be never wanted us to know that it was a lie. The powers that be never wanted us to know that we were in Syria backing the bin Ladenites. The powers that be never wanted you to know that while we were ramping up troops in Afghanistan to take on Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, we were also fighting alongside them and giving them weapons and propping them up in Syria to overthrow the regime in Syria. Now make that make sense at all. We shouldn't know that in the 1980s, while we were having Saddam as our proxy fight a war against Iran, that we were also running guns to Iran to fight Saddam. Now, people ask, well, actually, I saw some YouTube video the other day about the Iran-Iraq war, in which the presenter of it said, well, there's no viable evidence that we ever propped up Saddam Hussein in his war against Iran, or that we forced him to launch that war against Iran. Well, we gave him the weapons. We gave him the direct, hey, maybe you should go do that thing, because now we fell out of love with the Iranians all of a sudden. Even though we were being buddies with them when the Ayatollah took power. I mean, we allowed it. He wasn't like in the mountains of Iran. So there's that. And then once, everybody thinks that the embassy was taken over immediately. It happened months later, and it happened because the Shah was flown to America to receive cancer treatment. And so the students thought that the revolution was over and that we were going to bring him back. And so then they stormed the embassy. We were trying to get along with Iran, and we were getting along with Iran. And even better is Israel was getting along with Iran, with the Ayatollahs. From day one. That's the thing about Iran-Contra, is Iran-Contra happened. We were selling weapons to both sides. Kind of immoral, is what it is. But let me go back. Saddam launches that war, and he launches that war mainly because Saddam, as a Sunni, has a huge Shiite population in the south and the east of his country. And once he sees that you have this revolution happening in Iran, he gets a little froggy. The Sunnis in Iraq are the minority. He gets a little froggy. He's like, don't like that. So he conscripts all of those Shiites and sends them into war against Iran. Kind of makes sense, I guess. So if you look at it from the American standpoint, it's really just a bunch of Shiites killing Shiites. They don't necessarily look at each other as Iraqi or Iranian. They're just Shiites. So you're like, doesn't matter what flag's on his arm if he's gone. They look at it as weakening Iran. But the whole Iran-Contra is able to be perpetuated. They're able to run guns because they can't sell them directly to the Iranians because now they're on the bad guy list through Congress. So they have to funnel them through a third party. That third party is Israel, who's giving them weapons. Excuse me, is the middleman selling them weapons. We sell them to Israel, Israel sells them that. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. Okay, so now all of a sudden, fast forward 40 years later, same regime's in power in Iran, but now Israel has a big problem with them. Now, without getting too much deeper into this whole ins and outs of Iran, Iraq, Israel, and the history of it, there is no way that I should know that. I am not an expert in any of this. I've never been to the region. The furthest east I've ever been is Indiana. The furthest west I've ever been is Las Vegas. I am not well traveled whatsoever. There is no reason that I should know any of this, but I do because the information is allowed to be disseminated. Not only is the information gathered, it is then put together in a collection, disseminated, spoke about, interviews, any number of things that are out there, which is all the more frustrating when you see some of the YouTube stuff out there that is so well done about like documentaries or here's how things happen. I'm not even sure what you call those YouTube things when they talk about a specific, small time war that had nothing to do. It's small time for us because it had nothing to do with us. But there's no reason I should know any of this. None. Zero. But I do. Because the powers that be can't keep it under wraps. Because we have all of this grand technology. So back to thinking about yourself. If you're black-pilled about your country, then yes, it's going to be bad. Because you're going to make it bad. because you're black pilled. But if you can find the silver lining in these things, if you can find the good parts, if you can find the reason that it is great, that is still great. I love the term "make America great again," but I didn't think it was bad. Sure, there's some stuff you want to change, but I don't think it's bad. It's a great catchy phrase, but when you really dive into it, like most phrases, you're just like, well, what the hell does that even mean? That doesn't make sense. It only makes sense if it's like crappy now. In 2016, was America crappy? I don't think it really was. I don't think it was it a shell of its former self? No. We were in a bad economic time, unless you were super rich or quite rich. You didn't have to be super rich. If you had access to big capital, you were in a good spot. Um, but it wasn't like everything was falling apart at the time. I didn't really care for the president, but he was on his way out. Oh shit, we might get the worst person ever to live in the modern time of Hillary Clinton. That's not good. But really, it wasn't a horrible country. Race relations got worse under Barack Obama, which is quite ironic. Not to be surprised, I guess. Once you, again, the red pill thing, once you understand. But really, it wasn't like it was chaos and anarchy in the streets. The country was doing fine, by and large. Yeah, again, ups, downs, things of that nature. But we weren't in a global recession anymore. We were coming out of that. Things were starting to look up. 2015, 2016, especially 2016, 2017, things were doing great. The Trump economy, people were buying shit. Just recently heard under the first Trump administration that the lowest 4 or 5 quintiles of earners, their incomes went up substantially, and the highest earners' income stayed about the same. So that's pretty good. I don't know. If you start looking at it at a better thing of the small victories, the small wins, the silver linings, why are we blackpilled about our country? We're talking about the issues. We're seeing some issues. We have, if you look at the UK right now and the issues they're going through, we understand it. We're not stupid. We can see that coming. I just saw over the weekend, I saw where Australia was having huge protests over crazy like migrant illegal immigration. Not migrant, but illegal immigration. That's Australia. Lockdown capital of the world. Under thumb, Australia was having big time demonstrations against illegal immigration. First of all, I didn't know how you illegally immigrate to Australia. Like it's not exactly near anything. Obviously on boat or by plane. But they're having demonstrations. So the Australian people have had enough. You have to be white pilled about the West because we know what's going on. We're talking about it. I'm talking about it right now, and like 4 of you are listening. And I think thanks to all 4 of you. Think about if it's 30 years ago where none of this is possible. We're just constantly bombarded from corporate media telling you what you're supposed to know, telling you all the things you're supposed to believe, and telling you to accept all the things you're supposed to accept. I mean, if we didn't have the internet and the rise of the citizen journalist and the podcast world and social media, would we be able to resist the trans agenda at all? Would we be able to resist any number of the things that are happening, that the woke nonsense? I hate that term, but it does describe what I'm talking about, and most of you will know what I'm talking about when I say it. The woke agenda that's out there of none of us are different, we're all equal and the same, except unless you're of a different color or minority, then you're obviously better than the white people. Would we know what I know, living here in my little recluse community of Oklahoma, that there was any sort of immigration problem in Texas or California or wherever? Would I know that? How would I know that? I would have to go there. Now we know that. Now we can talk about it. Now we can create, massive issues on the internet. about just think back to when Trump was elected and he was deciding on who his cabinet picks were going to be before confirmation. And look at how many were just non-starters based on internet issue or internet campaigns. Just think about that. Nikki Haley, out instantly. Supposedly this darling superstar of the Republican Party. If Trump eats that bullet on Butler, it's a bad day for all of us. Made worse by it's probably Nikki Haley who's going to get the nomination. Neocon Nikki. Where's she at? She on the back of a milk carton? Which is funny that you should put the back of a milk carton on the back of a milk carton because so many people don't even know what the hell I'm saying when I say that. Back of the milk carton is missing. So, but where's Nikki Haley? I haven't heard a word out of her. Gone forever. Gone. Hopefully forever. But out of the light. Out of the public light. Out of politics. Now you got Nancy Mace running for governor of South Carolina, which I am for it. I can't wait to see that shit show. Sorry, South Carolina. You do have options, though. Your voice can't be heard. Mace is in the race, baby. Right, I digress. How can you be black-pilled, man? How? Honestly, how? It's the greatest country that's ever existed. You hit the geographical fucking lottery when you were born here, man. Imagine being born at any other time on planet Earth. Any other time. It would have sucked. Those of us who live where air conditioning needs to happen, not like the UK, who does need air conditioning apparently because they always whine when it gets over like 72 degrees. Can you imagine being in South Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Florida, anywhere in like 1900, no AC? You're in wool clothes, 3-piece suit with a vest, wool just fanning yourself. Fuck that, man. You know you just stink to high heaven. Didn't have the interwebs, man. Good or bad. You know, I have so many conversations with people who are like, oh, these phones, they're this, they're that. The internet's done this, it's done that. Social media, this, that. It's a tool, man. It's how you use it. Hammers drive nails, and they also kill people. It's how they're used. Guns are the same way. I don't know if you can drive a nail with a gun. Well, actually, you can. You have those special-made ones that take a .22 shell and forget the name of them. I'm sure B knows it. But you can drive nails with guns, or you can hurt people with guns, or you can just shoot them in inanimate objects like a target. Steel target, paper target, what have you. It's fun as fuck. If you're not into shooting guns, I don't get it. You're missing out. That's cool, though. You know, just leave me alone when it comes to guns. And stop trying to ban all trannies from having guns. You know, they haven't hurt anybody but themselves. You understand that, right? You know, I start thinking about, and a lot of people have brought this up, and it's been a thing already that they fought against, but PTSD in a soldier. Is that a mental illness? Is combat stress a mental illness? Is traumatic brain injury? It sounds like a mental illness. It's an injury to your brain. So that leap's pretty short. Fucking one-legged man can make that leap. So now, guy goes, fights for country, gets shot, gets hit in the head, whatever, has a TBI. Now he can't own a firearm? How's that work? Still yet to find that clause that says, unless it's mental illness in the Second Amendment. Don't get it. Yeah, B. Depression, another one. Depression is the one. I'm sure you can make the leap of depression as mental illness pretty easy. Someone define depression. Anyone. Define depression. Super sads? What does that mean? So a loved one dies and you're kind of super sad. Oh, better take his guns, man. He's depressed. Better get them guns, bro. Maybe you're depressed because you just had a relationship that went south and you're female and you're not really feeling happy about it. And you're really not feeling happy because the fucker won't leave you alone and he's threatening you. But all he has to do is go, I don't know, man, she's depressed. Oh shit, we better get all them guns out of her house. Yeah, get all them guns out of her house. Then he's going to show up, kick the fucking door, and beat her to death. This is where it goes, guys. It's not hard to understand. You know, my white pill moment about this is, let me pull the tweet back up from Mr. Wilford Riley. About to see the left go hard in the paint, basically, about over gun rights. If you're trying to get the trans to not have gun rights. I mean, I've thrown it out there, a much morbid way to put it, is that, you know, if California wants to have like abortion up to like 5 years old or whatever they want to have, then they should have to issue a mother a .22 pistol when she gets pregnant. When the child's delivered, you know, Governor Newsom can walk in and open a case, wood case with a .22 Ruger, or, you know, maybe have 3, 4, 5 different .22s of your choice. You know, maybe you want a revolver. Ruger does make a revolver. Single 6, you know, something like that. Mark IV. Opens it up and goes, here you go, madam. Just in case you want to do one of those extendo abortions, here's your pistol and here's some ammo. Would you like the soft point or would you like the hollow point? I don't know. If it gets more guns in hands, is it worth it? Because California's going to outlaw abortion. They're not. Should we outlaw abortion nationally? Morally, yes. Is that where the people are? No. You know, I see people trying to make this moral argument, or this right-wrong argument, I should say. I'm going to hold up. A lot of this topic that I'm talking about the pilling of America and the white pill, and why I am white pilled for America and the West in general, is because of Michael Malice's book, The White Pill. And I understand this might be backwards in the camera right now. It's a fantastic book. It's about the rise and fall of the Bolsheviks, the Soviet Union. Fantastic book. Even if you don't like Michael Malice for some reason, this is a fantastic book. Period. Lots of information, great book. But on the front of it, the subtitle is A Tale of Good and Evil. That is a much better designation than right and wrong. He very easily could have put A Tale of Right and Wrong, but that's not correct, because right and wrong are subjective things. I know I get so much pushback on this because we've been just constantly bombarded since we were kids about teaching right and wrong. Okay, how is it different, good and evil? Because you would say, well, good is right and evil is wrong. Well, that's not how the world works, because there was this group called the Nazis once. And you know what? I won't even use the Nazis. I'll use the Bolsheviks, which became the Soviets. Vladimir Lenin, Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. They weren't the only communists during the revolution. They were the only ones left when the revolution was over. Now, right would be all of the communists joined together, I guess. Wrong would be people killing people, I guess. Actually, let's go backwards. The right thing would be the populist movement of the people took over in a country. If the workers wanted their revolution and they got it, then that would be the right thing, wouldn't it? You overthrow the government you don't want and you install the government you do want. We can all probably say that would be right. Okay. Is that good or is that evil in the long run? Or even in the short term? Because you could say, oh, it's a good thing they took over. It's the right thing that the people have a voice. And then they start slaughtering all the people who oppose them. That's probably wrong unless you're part of the Bolsheviks. And then you're saying this is the right thing to do because these other groups are going to try to take over and then instill their version or maybe they're capitalists, or maybe they're saboteurs, or they're this or that. So you can very easily say, this is the right thing for our preservation, but it's not good, it's evil to do that and kill groups of people. So do you understand how right versus wrong is not the way to look at adult problems? That's how children look at things. That's how we teach children. At some point, we should be bringing them along and teaching them about good and evil. It is the right thing to do that if little Johnny feels like he's a little Susie, that we should treat him as if he is Susie for his mental wellness, right? That would be the right thing to do. We don't want to be mean to little Johnny. So now we're going to call little Johnny little Susie because that would be the right thing to do. It would be wrong to tell him that he was a fool or be mean to him, right? But is that a good thing to do or an evil thing to do? It is an evil thing to do. Because we, as adults, understand, or we certainly fucking should understand, the difference between good actions and evil actions. Because we have lived longer than 5-year-old little Johnny, and we can say at our advanced age of 25, 30, whatever it is, hey, this is a bad thing, kid. I know better than you. This is not good for you. You're not going to like me in the short term. I don't care because I know better. This is good to tell you that you're wrong about what you think, because doing the opposite and transitioning little Johnny into little Susie is fucking evil. It's evil. Taking someone's rights away because they're of an adult age and they decided that they wanted to go from a male to a female, and they've paid the money, and they've done all of the things, and they're 18 years or older, the age we've agreed on that's an adult, which is also too low. It should be a little higher. If they want to do those things, free fucking country, chop off. Do the thing. Just leave me the fuck alone. That doesn't mean necessarily that they have some problem and they have to have their rights stripped away. Because here's the thing. If we're going to be true Second Amendment champions or absolutists, whatever you want to say, we cannot be taking, or if you just want to be a rights absolutist, you cannot be taking someone's rights away without any sort of crime being committed. You know, that is the social contract that we've all kind of agreed upon by living under the government we live under and remaining in this country, is that, hey, we agree that to maintain the law and order, if you will, at its base level, there are people that are going to offend the rights of other people, either physically or by other means. And those people, when they do that, need to be removed from society for an amount of time to be determined by the intermediary, aka the judiciary government, judged by your peers based on the law agreed upon by the people and the representatives. Okay? Now, has it been bastardized and screwed up? Sure. You have convicted felons who've been let out who then reoffend, go back in, vice versa, do all the things. Here's the thing. Those of you that say that violent felons shouldn't have any sort of access to firearms, you're admitting the system is broke. Because really what should happen is if you're too damn dangerous to own a firearm, then you're too damn dangerous to be out amongst the regular public who's not too damn dangerous to own a firearm. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it should work. Now, your excuse or your solution is the same solution to a problem created by the entity who created the problem, your government, who goes, oh, we should let this person out. We think they've done better. And they let them out knowing full well that they're still dangerous and violent to the public. They come out, they do the dangerous or violent thing again, and then they go, oh, well, you know what? We got a solution to the problem we created. They don't need no damn guns. They can't have them. No guns. And you go, oh, yeah, that's the way it should be. Yeah, your solution works, even though you created the fucking problem. Yeah. That's where you got the NFA, by the way, guys. That's why you can't have short barreled rifles and suppressors and all of those things. It's also where you got automatic weapons bans in 1980s about the drug wars, which the CIA was perpetuating, running the guns, drugs, and money. It's a government created problem with a government created solution, which all it does is take your rights away. That's all it does. I mean, the NFA came about because you had gangland violence because the government took away your ability to get an alcoholic drink. Cheers, by the way. And then their solution was, well, fuck, we got to take all your, originally it was, we got to get these pistols out of here. And then they're like, hey, you can't be banning no pistols, man. And they're like, well, we'll just do short barrel rifles, that could be like kind of pistols, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. It's amazing to me that even with all the technology and all the know-how and all of the history, you guys still wanted to bomb fucking Iran, and you guys still want to take somebody's gun rights away with no due process, no crime committed, no suspicion of a crime being committed. You going out and covering your body in tattoos does not preclude you from owning a firearm, just as you going out and disfiguring your body and cutting your breasts off and having a penis made out of your arm skin and whatever. That hurts no one but yourself. You're a fool. Both of you are fools, whether you're covered head to toe in tattoos, got that damn lizard tongue, piercings. It's not any different in my mind. I mean, is it any different? Is that mental illness? I don't know. It just sounds like a lot of daddy issues. Is bulimia a mental issue? Anorexia, is that a mental issue? I mean, I would think like an anorexic female would be the poster child for needing to own a pistol. I mean, you could knock them over with a stiff fart. Where does it end, guys? And now I'm on a fucking diatribe about the Second Amendment again because it gets me so pissed off. So here we are. By we, I mean all of us. I don't know, me. But here we are talking about it again. B, I'm going to highlight that comment. If we're going to do that, why not ban the demographic that commits the most crime, right? Well, I understand where your heart's at, buddy, and I understand your sarcasm. Maybe I'll get into crime statistics in another episode, but let's just take it at face value. I don't know. B, you bring up a good point, though. If you take that mixed with Wilford Riley's tweet, if you do both of these things, maybe you have the left wing like, you know what, we need to repeal that goddamn NFA too. Maybe we get that. I don't know. That's the real 4D chess move or whatever, the underwater chess master. If you weaponize the left because their hatred of Trump is so irrational, if you weaponize them against themselves, that's the ultimate move. Huh. You boys might be on to again, white pill moment. Let's just ban the demographic that commits the most crime, right? So yeah, you put that and you're like, look, we're just going to disarm all black people. And we're going to extend all this to, if we see a young black male with a gun, instant jail. Can't have it, right? Gonna ride and die hard. Gonna go hard in the paint. I mean, it's a move. It's a viable move, guys. Oh, what else did I have to do? Let me just leave you with this. I'm surprised I was able to talk this long about this. I didn't have much coming into this show, I'm going to be honest. I appreciate you guys coming and hanging out and watching and listening later on. But I'll just leave you with this when it comes to the quote-unquote pilling of America. What do you see for the future of America? And what do you see for the future of yourself? Because if the future of yourself is dark, bleak, and black, then the future of America is dark, bleak, and black. But if you can muster up the courage, if you find the silver lining, to find that white pill, to find the reason, this country wasn't ever supposed to exist. This country wasn't ever supposed to make it. We weren't supposed to beat the British. We weren't supposed to beat them again in the War of 1812. And we weren't supposed to survive the Civil War. Capitalism had failed. America was a failed experiment. But God damn it, we made it. Somehow, some way. I'm here. You're here. We're all here. Greatest country that ever lived. So, if you can't be white-pilled about that, if you can't be white-pilled in your day-to-day life, then the country's doomed to fail, and you might as well leave now. That said, catch y'all next time. Stay toxic.